you said, oh, okay, now we're recording. It was making me think, the Bhagavatam is spoken, and it's really a lot of the events of the Bhagavatam are not taking place in Kali Yuga. I mean, of course, we know that the conversation itself between Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, that's kind of like at the very beginning of Kali Yuga. But some of these events and references don't happen in Kali Yuga. So I'm wondering, and I just want to offer this up, could it be that seeing these bhakti yogis doing this process, could it be that they're following a process from a different age? Like we hear about in the third canto with Kardama Muni, how he seemed to have been doing a similar kind of like mystic yoga type thing. But Prabhupada says he was a pure devotee, but he was sitting down on the river. I think it was the Ganges, but I can't remember. Oh, Bindu Sarovar, was that it? Anyway, I'll have to look that up again. But anyway, it seemed like he was doing a type of meditation similar to what's being described here, but we hear that he's also a pure devotee. But I've also heard it stated.
Excuse me, Mother Banga. Excuse me. Yes. I just want to ask that maybe you could read text 21 so that anybody who's listening to our conversation will know what we're talking about, because we can tie that in with text 20 and text 19 and you know exactly what it is you're talking about once we hear the verse, I think.
Okay. Yeah, whatever you like. All right. Okay. Tasma Bhur Antaram Unanyata Niruda Satyaya Tantun Pekshaha Shidva Muhurta Dam Akunta Drishtir Nirvidya Murdam Vishijat Paramgata. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air, he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach a cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Purport. The process for giving up all material connections and returning home back to Godhead, the Supreme, is recommended herein. The condition is that one should be completely free from desire for material enjoyment. There are different grades of material enjoyment in respect to duration of the highest life in sensual gratification. The highest plane of sensual enjoyment for the longest period of life is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9:20. All are but material enjoyments, but one should be thoroughly convinced that he has no need of such a long duration of life, even in the Brahmaloka planet. He must return home back to Godhead and must not be attracted by any amount of material facilities. In the Bhagavad Gita 2:59, it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible to attain when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life. Param Dristra Nivartate. One cannot be free from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. The propaganda by a certain class of impersonalists that spiritual life is void of all varieties is dangerous propaganda to mislead the living beings into becoming more and more attracted by material enjoyments. As such, persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot have any conception of the Param, the Supreme. They try to stick to the varieties of material enjoyments, although they may flatter themselves as being Brahman, self-realized souls. Such less intelligent persons cannot have any conception of the Param, as mentioned in this verse. Therefore, they cannot reach the Supreme. Devotees have full knowledge of the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, and his transcendental association in unlimited spiritual planets called Vakuntas. Herein, Akunta Drishti is mentioned. Akunta and Vakunta convey the same import, and only one who has aim fixed upon that spiritual world and personal association with Godhead can give up his material connections even while living in the material world. This Param and the Param Dhamma, mentioned in several places in the Bhagavad Gita, are one and the same thing. One who goes to the Param Dhamma does not return to the material world. This freedom is not possible, even by reaching the topmost loka of the material world. The life air passes through 7 openings, namely 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Generally, it passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death. But the yogi, as above mentioned, who controls the life air in his own way, generally releases the life air by puncturing the cerebral hole in the head. The yogi therefore blocks up all the above mentioned 7 openings so that the life air will naturally burst forth through the cerebral hole. Sorry, can't talk today. This is the sure sign of a great devotee's leaving the material connection. Okay, that was quite a lengthy purport with many points. So I will read the text again. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air, he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free of all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme.
We can pick
I'm
up.
not sure, but I think we say cerebral. Is that how we say cerebral or
cerebral? Okay.
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
We can pick up from where you're leaving off with Kardama Muni, and I know that there's a connection here with what you were explaining at the beginning.
Yeah, so and just hearing about Kardama Muni's meditation, it seems similar to what's going on here. But yet he's described as being a pure devotee. But that pastime took place in Satya Yuga, at least from what I've heard from various senior devotees in this movement. So in Satya Yuga, you had this process of, more of like the long meditation. They meditated for, I believe the lifespan was 100,000 years, and they would do meditation for 10,000 years. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, or if you've heard something different. But anyway, so it appears, from what you're bringing up last week, that this is also connected with Bhakti Yoga, this process. However, I did hear in a lecture from Srila Prabhupada on the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is talking about the yogi and going to the forest and things like this. He's talking about this yogic practice in this lecture, and he's saying that this process is important, otherwise it wouldn't be mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. But in the age of Kali Yuga, it is very difficult to perform perfectly, because you have to be in a place where you don't have any distractions. And you have to, which normally meant going to the forest, and you would have some deer skin, and you sit down maybe next to a lake, and you kind of live off of fruits and roots and whatever you can gather. And we can just see that in Kali Yuga, you can't really do this. And I'm pretty sure in some places you can't do it legally, because I know it's considered squatting, and squatting is illegal.
Right. Just dying naturally is forbidden. You
Right.
must go to hospitals and be hooked up to machines. You can't just die naturally in this society anymore. It's a shame.
It really is a shame. That's a good point.
We've lost the art of dying,
And also, and even if you manage to stay there for a few years, there's a chance some contractor would buy up the land and put some, especially if it's on a nice area with a nice river, it's just a matter of time before high-rise hotels and condos are built in that place. But Prabhupada's main reason for why we can't do this is that because the mind is so distracted, the mind is so disturbed in this age of Kali Yuga that the mind needs to have some sort of engagement. This is why the impersonalist path also is very difficult to perform as well, because this idea of emptying the mind, one can't do it. Trying to make the mind free of desire is not possible. So Prabhupada talks in this purport about making it free of material desire. And since this process mentioned here and the process mentioned in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita are very difficult and close to impossible for us to perform in this age of Kali Yuga, therefore, we're given a bit of an easier process by the chanting of the Maha Mantra, the chanting of the holy names. And even that's kind of difficult for a lot of us to perform in the proper way that we want to do it, right? Like we have these 10 offenses and we can recite them. And then but how many of us can, actually, chant with full attention? And with chanting japa, I was thinking that, you have some engagement with your senses, right? Because we're engaging our sense of touch and we're engaging our ears. So it's seemingly easier than some sort of silent meditation, or meditation like the yogis would be doing in this verse. But still, it's very difficult. We have to have all these japa seminars for techniques for how to chant attentive japa, to give us help, because it's very difficult for most of us. And Srila Prabhupada knew this, and which is why he actually set the standard at 16 rounds instead of 64. But along with that, most of us, we can't just sit and chant. We have to have some engagement, some physical engagement, engage our propensities. So in this process, is very important, because what I do take from this verse is that we have to give up all desires for material enjoyment. That's kind of like the essence here for going back home, back to Godhead. So here we have this bhakti yogi, he's doing this by pushing the life air up between the eyebrows and, doing this meditation process and, whatever else they do in this time. But for us, we have another process for giving up all material enjoyments that will give us the same result as this yogi. We have the chanting of the holy name. If we do that right, the process to enjoy selfishly or to enjoy for ourselves, it starts to go away. You start to think, okay, what does Krishna want instead of what do I want? I've heard the example, instead of dressing yourself very nicely, you think, how can I dress the deity more nicely? What is Krishna like? What is the deity like? I know sometimes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I do deity seva, bathing the shalagrams. And usually I'm not thinking on those days, oh, what's like how can I, make myself, look the best, even though I want to look nice for Krishna. That's not my main goal in the morning. I want to put on a clean sari and tilak and all that, but I'm mostly thinking, how can I make the shalagram look more beautiful? And so we just got new eyes for it, and I'm painting it, things like that. So this process, by the chanting and by the physical engagement, we start to gradually give up these desires for material enjoyment. And as you give up these desires for material enjoyment, you're just changing what you're attached to, from attachment to material enjoyment to attachment to Krishna's enjoyment. And the same thing applies to us, I think. It says here for the yogi, having done this, or he says he should give up all desires for material enjoyment. He should then reach this cerebral whole and give up his material connections, having gone to the supreme. So once we transfer our attachment to Krishna, then we can go back home, back to Godhead, just like this yogi. So for me, I try to take the essence ultimately of this verse, which is to the whole idea is to make yourself completely free from all desires for material enjoyment. And there's a lot that I could say in this purport, and but I just wanted to see if you guys had something that stuck out to you.
Yes, Hare Krishna. It might very well be so, as you say, that these practices were things that were done in the previous age. But nevertheless, we do know that there are people who practice Kundalini yoga,
Right.
who have this, these who do these practices of trying to move their energy through their body. And I could imagine that some such person, if they were a devotee and were to read this, would say, "Oh yes, excellent technique to try to put into action at the time of my death." But it would come more naturally to a person who was already practicing that kind of thing than to some of us in Bhakti yoga practicing other types of things. Like for some, the chanting is the most important. For to hear when you're leaving your body, but for others maybe there's this idea of the energy. Maybe it all goes together, like I was saying last week. I mean, these three verses with these techniques for moving the energy through our body, we must do at the time of crisis, when we're dying, so at the time when we should be chanting the holy name as well and thinking of the Lord somehow as well. And it seems a rather complicated, but as I said a few minutes ago, I guess we've lost we we don't study the technique of the art of dying anymore. We just study the techniques of how to escape from death. What we can do to run away from it. How when we have an emergency, we can run to the hospital and be put on machines and have our life, extended. And so back in those days, maybe they lived many more years, and they were ready to move on when they moved on. Maybe they, so for them it was like, oh, this is it. I'm going to the woods. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to move my energy through my body, and it's really time. I better close all those holes. And I want to be sure that my energy comes out my head and not some other area of my body. But yeah, it's fascinating. It really is a fascinating thing, and interesting imagery of part of our process. What part of our process could be, has been in the past, could be possibly, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating, and I appreciate that point you made about how we don't know how to die anymore because people have kind of covered that up. And also, you had mentioned Kundalini Yogi, and we had a Kundalini Yogini here for a few years. She was actually, we had two of them. They were really into this practice, and they were being yoga teachers here to help the devotees just keep their bodies kind of somewhat fit, and to teach us pranayam to keep us keep the mind peaceful. But I was talking with one of them, and I asked her, what made you want to take to Krishna consciousness from like your Kundalini path. Like, why did you add the chanting of the holy name, basically? And she told me, she said, out of all the meditations I've ever done, I've noticed that the chanting of the Maha Mantra is the most powerful. And then she because I never had like a Kundalini, like I never understood the whole Kundalini awakening thing. And I said, I hear a lot of good things about this whole Kundalini awakening. Like, could you tell me what that's like? And she told me, and this according to her, that the thing is, if you have a Kundalini awakening, but you don't have anything to do after that, you can actually kind of go crazy a little bit because it awakens you, but she said you don't know what to do with that energy. So if you she said, so I noticed that you have to be engaged in devotional service. Otherwise, the energy from the Kundalini awakening, it can make you go a little bit crazy because in this age we don't really know like what to do with this type of stuff. So that was her take on it. And as she had been practicing Kundalini yoga for a long time, so I mean, I'm not an expert in that by any means, but I just thought I would throw that in there since that was her kind of like I guess you could say testimonial for the practice of bhakti yoga. Although I did yoga with her, she modified some of the exercises for me, and I got, physically I got good benefits. The mind was more peaceful, and yeah, there's definitely some benefit to it. It's not that it has zero benefits, but it's it can't really take you all the way. It's very difficult in this age for that. So anyway, Govinda, you have something you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you both for sharing your points and for turning the nectar here that we're reading. Um, well, one thing that stands out to me is that we're talking about previous ages and we're talking about this practice of this form of yoga taking place like in previous times when it was actually possible. And it makes me think of there's a pastime in the Prabhupada Lilamrita where it was a Kumbh Mela, but it was like a Maha Kumbh Mela. I forgot the word for it. It's like Arda or something Kumbh Mela. It's
Like
like
the one they do every 12 years or 18
something
years?
like that.
Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
like a specific one that happens less than the other. Yeah, where all the devotees had gone. And so there's like, I think there's like millions, there's millions of people that come to this, what do you call it? The Triveni or three, where there's like the meeting of the three sacred rivers.
Um,
Three,
yeah, the tree something.
yeah, well, you know what I mean. But yeah, so where all these millions of pilgrims and spiritualists and transcendentalists and just everyone comes to these sacred to the meeting of these three sacred rivers. So it's a huge amount of people, and the devotees had built their pandals and they had their programs. They even brought, I think they brought deities, and they're having programs distributing prasadam. And as the Kumbh Mela, the festival is taking place, there, I guess word got out or people started hearing that there was one yogi who was renowned, and he was actually said to be like over 500 years old, and he was up in the top of a tree. And there's people like worshiping or like paying obeisance to him, something like that. And actually, what he told the people there is, you can't do what I do. Like you can't practice what I'm practicing. And so actually what you should do, and he pointed to like Prabhupada and the devotees, that's what you should do. In this age, like this is what you practice. And so, and I don't remember if he said anything specific about Srila Prabhupada, but I just know, I just remember that part, that he is basically endorsing bhakti yoga over what he himself has done and even mastered because he's living it. He's over 500 years old. And even him, he's telling others not to do what I'm doing. You can't. You just can't do it in this age. So it's better to practice bhakti. This is your path. This is the path for everyone here, or for most. So that came out from just the discussion that we were having here. And I mean, going back to what we were talking about with Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, and just the connections with the Bhagavad Gita, I haven't read the full Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm my own personal studies. I'm on the second canto. I'm actually trying to catch up to where we are so I can have like there's like more, nectar to churn. Um, but just I guess one connection that could be there. I don't know if Mataji, if you've read the whole entire Srimad Bhagavatam, but it makes me think of like how in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he outlines all these other processes. He goes through karma yoga, through jnana yoga, and like we're talking about with uh like hatha yoga, ashtanga yoga, and sitting on a deer skin and doing this and doing all that. So Krishna he does like a natural progression of building up basically to the process of bhakti and then just full surrender. There's like a gradual progression. And so it makes me think that is the same thing happening here, like in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Shukadeva Goswami is giving like a natural progression to Maharaj Parikshit. And so that's why he's mentioning all these different paths. Like we spoke about the Virata Rupa, which I mean, when we go to the temples, it's not that we're there's a Virata Rupa deity. We're not worshiping the Virata Rupa or anything like that. But it's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of our most important scriptures that we read. And then now, we're speaking about controlling the life air and just, but it's all building up. At least to my knowledge, we're getting to the 10th canto where it's full on like just the cream of rasa of Krishna's lila with his devotees. So that's where my head went is maybe Shukadeva Goswami is giving us like a progression, just like Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita. And so that's why we're covering these points here and we're reading about them. I don't know if you can confirm.
That is an interesting question. I mean, I can't confirm it at the moment,
Okay.
but even though I have read the whole Bhagavatam, so I should be able to confirm that. But there's so much in the
Yeah, I
Bhagavatam
know. It's so many verse. Yeah.
that when I went through it the second time, I spent more time trying to pay attention to the progression of the conversation because I I read it the first time, but I kind of got lost with the progression because there's another question asked here, which then leads to this, and leads to that, and leads to that. But yeah, it's definitely something that I want to look into.
Well, I mean, there definitely is a progression. I mean, I'm just wondering, like, if it's like what I'm mentioning specifically, but
Right,
there's
yeah.
definitely a progression because why else would Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas tell us to study the Srimad Bhagavatam systematically? If it was all the same, then you could read first canto, then 11th canto, then 7th and 10th, and there wouldn't need to be an order to it. But we're
Right.
explicitly told you read it first canto to 12th canto. You read it in order. That's why there's an order. So there's a progression there. I guess the question is just like what I mean, yeah, sometimes Srila Prabhupada, I forgot who he told, but he told someone that Krishna consciousness is so simple that you'll miss it. So sometimes we can like, at least me personally, I can like overthink things and what's this and what is that? But the answer sometimes is very simple and I'm just kind of going all I don't know, Gianni, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I like that question though. I think when I go through Bhagavatam, yeah, I guess we're going through it, so it's something
Yeah.
for us to watch for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway, I have one more thing I wanted to mention that was at the end of this paragraph that maybe you guys might find it interesting because it's talking about how the life air passes through seven openings: two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, one mouth. And Brahma says here, generally it passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death. But the yogi, as above mentioned, who controls the life air in his own way, generally releases the life air by puncturing this cerebral hole in the head. So I've actually been friends with a few caregivers that have, been with people when they're dying. One of them in particular has caregived for 13 people until they left their body. and was with them when they left their body. And she actually was talking to me about how, this life air, it's actually a very real thing. You can see it happening with them if you're with them at the time of death. Like she's, uh, witness. She said you can see it, come out of the mouth, or sometimes the life air can also. It's not mentioned here in this particular report, but she said the life can go out the whole of the anus as well in certain circumstances. But she said she's seen it a lot of times with like more pious type of people, um, that had tried their best to live a godly life. That the life air, she's felt and seen that it exits out the mouth itself. So, I thought that was really cool. That's just what I thought about when we read this. But yeah, having to go through that with the 13 people, it really further increased her faith in Krishna consciousness, and how, we're not really the body, we're the soul. Yeah. She said you can, everything changes, once they leave. Like you can feel like they're just no longer there. The body just becomes like a shell, and anyway, I just thought I would share that with you too.
Yeah, that's something that's been on my mind too. I mean, here in Alachua, it's kind of regularly now, maybe every week or two or three or every month, there's a devotee that is leaving the body that's mentioned. And there's actually one devotee that I've met too, that they help with like the last rites and putting the tulsi leaf and the Ganges water. So he actually does these rites for these devotees that are leaving or have already left. But yeah, that's something that I've been wanting to, I don't know, like learn more about. There's something in me that's wanting to hear or to speak with him more about that, and ask, what is that like? Because this is what we're reading about. We read that this is our life's final exam. This is life's final exam at that moment. But to actually experience it and to actually be there when someone is leaving, I can't really imagine what that's like. So there's like a growing, I guess, desire to want to know. And even actually before I met the devotees, I don't know where it came from, but there was uh, some desire. I think I had been reading some other kind of things, but there was some desire to want to volunteer in hospice. Uh, it never panned out. I think maybe it just wasn't time yet. Probably still isn't time yet, but um, yeah, yeah. And thank you for mentioning that.
And also, along with that, we can see that it's mentioning here that the yogi, they're able to kind of control that life air to where, it
Mm.
comes out the cerebral. And Prabhupada would mention that, one of the powers of the yogi is that they can leave their body at will.
Mm.
And but I also appreciate that he mentions, especially in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that, whatever we're thinking of at the time of death, that's the next state that we'll attain. So one can, like, manipulate the life airs, but at least from what I'm understanding with Prabhupada's teachings, is that the most important thing is the mental state. Like, what are you thinking about? Are you wanting to merge with the impersonal Brahman? Are you wanting to become, have your own planet, be some ultra powerful yogi,
Mm.
go to Satya, I believe it is Satya Loka, where everybody has, all these like yogic mystic power. They're perfect in all the 8 perfections.
Mm.
Um, but for one who's thinking of Krishna at the time of death, you don't necessarily have to worry about if you can manipulate all these things,
Mm.
because the Vaikuntha airplane comes for the devotee. like with Dhruva Maharaj, like with the airplane, came down for him. So for the devotee, it's our good fortune that we have this process, and that's ultimately meant to help us think of Krishna at the end of life, because then Krishna remembers you when you remember Krishna, and then Krishna comes for you. And there was a nice article in Dandavats not too long ago about a devotee leaving it, like she had some near-death experience. And I remember she mentioned in this article that when she was dying, like she actually, she was thinking of her mother. It was just like a knee-jerk like reaction. Like when you're in help, you call it the mom. But during her near-death experience, if she had been doing so much devotional service throughout her life, Krishna actually, came to her near-death experience, and she could see how, Krishna had been like guiding her. Krishna had been like kind of like behind everything. How Krishna had never left her. So it was very inspiring to me to also hear about that as well. That it's very difficult to be able to, obtain this level of yogic practice. But Krishna is very kind that if we're, trying to surrender into him, he helps us.
Yeah, and the association of the devotees just making it feel so much more feasible and easy to do. Because I mean, in my own personal experience, just today, I felt like it was like just having a real struggle, just really getting, I feel like bombarded with, felt like tamagun. That I was like just, it's very heavy, just very thick, I guess, cloud that was filling there, and just seeing my mind and all the different places that I was going. But even just being here, we're sitting, I'm not covering all my holes and like doing this intense level of meditation, but by speaking with you all and speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a tangible difference that I can feel just by having the association of devotees and speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam. It really brings you out of the darkness. And so uh yeah, so we hear that repeatedly, just be in the association of devotees. You need to be with devotees. And it's like we can experience why it's so important on so many different levels. But on one level is that it keeps our head above the water. You can see, or you can actually feel, and then feel the difference. Yeah, you can feel the difference. And then there's like encouragement too to continue on, that, oh, actually, because sometimes, our mind can play these tricks on us and make us think that bhakti is so hard, it's so difficult, like my mind and this, we can come up with all these different reasons why it's difficult to practice. But then we come here and then we're just sharing our different levels of realizations and speaking with each other and having nice association. And oh, bhakti, that's not so hard. It's not so bad. I can do this. Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's very nice. So thank you both for continually coming, and the consistency, commitment to continue showing up. I know I need the association. So thank you.
It's the Tushanti Cha Ramanti Cha, Krishna saying Machita Makata Pranam Bodhiganta Parasparam, So he's talking about those who are dedicated to his service, and they're always enlightening one another and feeling great bliss by conversing about him. I'm paraphrasing this verse, Bhagavad Gita 10:9, I believe. But then after this, I believe it's Tesham Satata Yuktanam, to those who are constantly dedicated and serve me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So we know that, hearing about Krishna, um, conversing about Krishna, this is devotion. This is a form of devotional service. This is Shravanam. And we're all speaking. So this is Kirtanam, chanting as well. This is the second type of chanting. Chanting is not just Hare Krishna, but it's also reciting Srimad Bhagavatam and reciting Krishna's glories and pastimes. So for one who is doing this, Krishna says, then what? I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. And then the next one is I destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So Krishna gives further understanding by which the devotee can come to him, and he destroys the ignorance, whatever ignorance they may have. So we see here that Krishna is, no matter where one is situated, even if you're not this, mystic yogi, Krishna will still give you some understanding by which that you can ultimately attain him.
Yeah, thank you. The Chatu Shloki. Yeah.
Yeah, those are very powerful verses.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think we're going back and reading just more and more inspiration to go back and open the Bhagavad Gita. It's so nice.
Did you have anything you want to add? If not, we could go to the next verse. I just want to make sure she's not left out.
I think maybe she had to step away for a little bit.
Oh, she had to step away. Okay. She might have had to step away for a minute. We should would you like to do 22?
Okay. Yadi prayasyan ripa paramishtyam Vaihayasanam utayad viharam Ashtadipatyam gunasanivaye Sahaiva gachin manasindhiyaischa. However, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. True Prabhupada ki. However, O King, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, or the achievement of the eightfold perfections, travel in outer space with the Vaihayasas, or a situation in one of the millions of planets, then he has to take away with him the materially molded mind and senses. Wow. Purport. In the upper status of the planetary systems, there are facilities thousands and thousands of times greater for material enjoyments than in the lower planetary systems. The topmost planetary systems consist of planets like Brahmaloka and Dhruvaloka, the pole star, and all of them are situated beyond Maharloka. The inhabitants of those planets are empowered with eightfold achievements of mystic perfection. I think you're just saying that. They do not have to learn and practice the mystic processes of yoga perfection and achieve the power of becoming small like a particle, anima siddhi, or lighter than a soft feather, a ghima siddhi. They do not have to get anything and everything from anywhere and everywhere, prapti siddhi, to become heavier than the heaviest, mahima siddhi, to act freely, even to create something wonderful, or to annihilate anything at will. The Siddha Siddhi, to control all material elements, Vasitva Siddhi, to possess such power as will never be frustrated in any desire, Rakamya Siddhi, or to assume any shape or form one may even whimsically desire, Kamavasayita Siddhi. All these expediencies are as common as natural gifts for the inhabitants of those higher planets. They do not require any mechanical help to travel in outer space, and they can move and travel at will from one planet to any other planet within no time. The inhabitants of the Earth cannot move even to the nearest planet except by mechanical vehicles like spacecraft. But highly talented inhabitants of such higher planets can do everything very easily. Since a materialist is generally inquisitive to experience what is actually in such planetary systems, he wants to see everything personally. As inquisitive persons tour all over the world to gain direct local experience, the less intelligent transcendentalist similarly desires to have some experience of those planets about which he has heard so many wonderful things. The yogi can, however, easily fulfill his desire by going there with the present materialistic mind and senses. The prime inclination of the materialistic mind is to lord it over the material world, and all the cities mentioned above are features of domination over the world. The devotees of the Lord are not ambitious to dominate a false and temporary phenomenon. On the contrary, a devotee wants to be dominated by the supreme predominator, the Lord. A desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator, is spiritual or transcendental. And one has to attain this purification of the mind and the senses to get admission into the spiritual kingdom. With the materialistic mind, one can reach the best planet in the universe, but no one can enter into the kingdom of God. Senses are called spiritually purified when they are not involved in sense gratification. Senses require engagements, and when the senses are engaged totally in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they have no chance to become contaminated by material infections. Translation: However, O king, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, or the achievement of the eightfold perfections, travel in outer space with the Vihayasa, or a situation in one of the millions of planets, then he has to take away with him the materially molded mind and senses. Okay, so like we were mentioning, or like Mataji was mentioning about in the top most planets, these beings that are living there actually have all of these eightfold perfections, these eight siddhis, things like becoming small or becoming light, creating things, even changing your shape, which for me is very like it's really fascinating to think that even within this universe that we're in, there's actually beings like that are existing. Uh, it's one thing,
Shapeshifters.
yeah, shapeshifters. Yeah, exactly. We read about them. There's like stories and all that, and it's actually that's true. I didn't even think about that, but that's true. There's actually this is like what I mean. I don't know for sure, but sure, there must be inspiration taken from actual beings that have done that people have seen do that. Um, but yeah, it's one thing for me, I guess, to read about demigods and these higher beings, and just oh, that's Lord Indra, or that's Lord Brahma, and but it's like as we're reading more details about it, it's at least for me, it's feeling more real. Like these are actual beings, these are actual personalities that are existing in this same timeline as me. Like I'm alive right now. I'm existing in this body on the planet Earth in the middle planetary system, but there's actually other planetary systems where there's beings that are alive, and not just alive, but with the consciousness so much more uh, evolved than my own, with actual powers of like things that you just read about, like superheroes, like superhero powers, that there's actual beings with powers like these that are alive, and that this is actually a real thing, which is very fascinating. And so makes me think of like the Puranas and all these different pastimes that we have, where we I mean I'm sure Srila Prabhupada has said, but I can't quote for sure, but where everything is in, you can find everything here, like it's all here, it's all in Krishna consciousness. That if you want action, you want superhero powers, it's here. You just find the Purana where such and such is mentioned, and they're fighting, and the demigods and the asuras, and they have this power and that power. It's right there. If you like comics or you like whatever, that you can find it there. One example I can think about is before meeting the devotees, there was one book that was called the Gulag Archipelago, or Pelagio, something like that. Oh, okay, you know it. So yes, I think it's Dostoevsky.
I've heard of some books similar to that. It's about yoga.
No, not at all.
Oh
Yeah.
no, okay, never mind.
No, the Gulag Archipelago. It's like a place, in
Okay, I was thinking of something different. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. Well, basically, it's like a book. I think it took place like Soviet Union. It was, Stalin, where if anyone had any type of kind of resistance or rebellion, that they would get sent to the gulags. They're these labor camps that were like freezing cold and just like basically hell on earth. And this book specifically documented, I think it was, I didn't read the whole thing, I just read a little bit of it, but it documented someone who went through that and they actually lived through that experience. And so this was a book that I was really, just kind of drawn to, just wondering like how degraded can life be, on Earth? Like how bad can situations really be? And so it's like, here's this book that can really paint to you like how bad a situation can be on Earth. I never got through it, but now, meeting the devotees and trying to practice Krishna consciousness, one book, I just saw the cover. I actually saw the first time I saw the cover of it was at Guru Maharaj's ashram in the apartment when I was helping him pack the books. For some reason, it just stood out. It was salted bread. I just saw the cover. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that one I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to read a couple of chapters of that, but I didn't own the books, so I didn't get to finish it. But yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, maybe I can borrow, you can borrow it. But yeah, but basically the salted bread is almost like the same kind of story as the Gulag Archipelago. It's where, I mean, you know what I mean. He's going through these terrible situations here on Earth, kind of going through like hell on Earth. But Krishna is there. So the same story, the same kind of situation and everything that I had found previously, but now it's like in salted bread in this book, Krishna is involved. It's a devotee who's going through this, and it talks about them trying to practice Krishna consciousness and preach Krishna consciousness, even in prison, even in labor camps, and the worst of the worst situations in life. And so, just further affirming, like having that faith that whatever kind of um, pleasure or thing that you find that you're connected to, that you're drawn to, somehow or other, I mean, there's, I guess, maybe certain things that there's no place for in Krishna consciousness, but for the most part, like whatever we're interested in or engaged in, there's some way that it can be connected with Krishna consciousness, which makes it all the more easy for us to stay on the path and continue practicing and um, and not get distracted with like what we're talking about, these cities or trying to get powers or trying to, oh, how is this planet like? I think I want to go there. Or what about that planet? But by staying involved in our bhakti, then we're not really so distracted and wanting to go to visit all these different planets. We want to go to the spiritual world. We want to be with Krishna, and that desire, as we continue practicing, growing and growing and actually strengthening to where it's a very real desire that we have, and it becomes our only desire to want to be and serve Krishna in the spiritual world. Or, yeah, yep. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Um,
I have like a question, so before you begin to speak, Lavanga, I just want to put a little comment that's kind of like a question in there, because here from the description here, I would be led to believe that there's not just like the material world and the spiritual world, that the spiritual world has several different planets. Are they like levels that we go through to get to the uppermost planet, or are they separate things that some are good for some and some are good for others? And how does that work?
Okay, so your question is, you're asking, are there different layers to the spiritual world?
Right, because here we're told, like for improved material enjoyments, transference to the topmost planet Brahma Loka. That's not Krishna Loka. That's not.
That's Brahmaloka is in the material world still.
Well, that's what I don't understand. What are these different planets? How does that progress? Is it a progression, or is it just one Krishna Loka and everything else is material world, or are there different various levels of material planets levels, like
My understanding, okay, of course, within the spiritual world, there is the Vaikunthas, which has one level of worship of Krishna in the form of Narayan, and then there's Goloka Vrindavan, which is worship of Krishna in more like an intimate way. So one might think of these as levels. However, I wouldn't think of it in that way because one goes there depending on what their attraction to Krishna is. So it's not necessarily that, it's like, oh, you reach, now you're on level 7, you get a level 8. It's not that the people in Vaikuntha want to go up to Goloka Vrindavan. But within the material world, at least from what I have been told, is that, okay, we have the Earth planet, which is in the middle. And then above the Earth planet, you have heavenly planets. Am I wrong, Govinda?
No, I was trying to remember like the names, but I couldn't remember like the actual
Yeah.
names of the planetary systems.
And then the heavenly planets, and then like within the material world still, there's Brahmaloka, which is the topmost, Mahaloka, there's Satyaloka. But even though these are planets where there might be greater material enjoyment, they're still in the material world, even though they might have these mystic yogis in them, because they're not, they may not be free of, complete material desire. So yeah, it could be levels in a sense, levels depending on what your qualification for material enjoyment is. If you have the karma and the desire to go to one of these, you can. So yeah, you can think of it as different levels in the material world, and then also below this earthly planet, you get to the subterranean hellish planets where people are enjoying. And in fact, there's a lot of enjoyment on the subterranean hellish planets, but it's kind of like, I've heard it described as like your Las Vegas type of material enjoyment. It's very like in the casino. It's kind of very dark. They don't have windows, so you don't know how much time is passing. Their enjoyment is very impious, so they're kind of going downwards. And then you have the hellish planets, and within the hellish planets, you have the lowest type of hellish planet, which is, gosh, Pataloka, I believe. Yeah, that's like the one that's the worst. So yeah, you get to different levels of suffering, and my understanding is when you go up, there's different levels and different types of enjoyment. But it all, which one you go to, all depends on your desire and what you deserve simultaneously.
So then Krishna Loka would be something totally apart. That would be what we're trying to achieve.
Yes.
Or
yeah, when Lord Chaitanya came, he came to give, the most intimate type of Ras, this Krishna enjoying with the gopis, enjoying with the cowherd boys, and all this. So he's giving this a more intimate level, more higher level of relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's giving us the opportunity to obtain that. But it may be, and many devotees have told me this, that somebody becomes more attracted to worship of Krishna and awe and reverence. I mean, in India, there are people who are, really into the worship of Lakshmi Narayan, and that's their thing. And they want to go to Vaikuntha, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's the spiritual world. It's just a different mood. And also, there's that pastime with the devotee of Lord Chaitanya, who was a worshiper of Lord Ram. I believe it was Marai Gupta. And if I'm thinking of the name correctly, I could be wrong. I'll have to look that up again. But he was very attached to the chanting of Lord Ram. And Lord Chaitanya, he actually praised him for this. He said, "Oh, you are Hanuman." So it could be one is more attached to Lord Ram, which is in more of an honor reverence as well. So, but Lord Chaitanya has come to give us the opportunity. And so, one has the opportunity to develop uh, the desire to go to Goloka Vrindavan. So, in the nectar of devotion, you have Vaidisana Bhakti, and you have Bhava and Prema. So, technically, one can go from Bodhisattva Bhakti to Bhava Prema and go to Vaikuntha. But there's a path, Raganuga Bhakti, which is specifically for following in the footsteps of the residents of Raj. Only the residents of Raj are Ragatmika Bhaktas. You know, so the Raganuga follows in the footsteps of the Ragatmika Bhakta. So they have this type of relationship. So when one is in Bodhisattva Bhakti, as they make advancements, they can choose to go to Raganuga Bhakti. This is what I've been told in Bhakti Shastri class. So the qualification for that, though, is one's intense desire, loyal, greed. And then one can start to follow in the footsteps of a resident of Braj. So when you're on the platform of Raganuga, one still follows all the rules and regulations of devotional service, but internally, within themselves, they are developing attachment to Krishna in a particular mood, like parental, friendship, Madhurya, something like that. Internally, you're getting this attraction. And as you make further advancement, then you'll start to follow in the footsteps of one of those residents, depending on, what your eternal relationship is with Krishna. And, then, you get to prema. But, one might not take to the path of Raganuga, depending on their own desire.
Okay, I understand what you're saying to me. I would just like to take a moment at this time to announce. Well, the three of us know, but maybe there's somebody watching, that next week, next Monday, which would be October 14th, Manunatha Maharaj will give the question and answer session for us. It will be at the same time at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. I believe the clocks are not changing yet, right? Govinda, you will have to keep us up to date on that information. But yes, it will be at 8:30, and we're looking for more questions, because I have indeed submitted a question, and so has Mother Navanga, and so has Govinda Prabhu. So any of you who are listening now or later might wish to add questions before Monday, October 14th, and attend the Zoom class. Thank you so much, everybody.
So the 14th, right? That's next week.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I had to look at my calendar. I'm like, okay, what day are we on?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for explaining the levels and everything. I love hearing the process, because it just gives me so much inspiration to keep going. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. It is all glories to the Bhakti Shastri teachers, that bring all this out, that study this in detail and make it very simple for us to understand. That's why Bhakti Shastri is so important. So.
Yeah, so somewhere there's a nice chart of these planets, right? Maybe you could.
Yeah, there is. I could send it. I could find it. Yeah, it's actually, I think oh yeah, it's easy to find. Yeah, I'll find it.
Oh, well, okay, we're actually a few minutes over. But anyway, thank you so much, guys, for attending, and thank you all for that are listening on YouTube and all that will listen throughout the week. And thank you so much to Manath Maharaj for allowing us to do this. And we look forward to the question and answer session next week. So all glories to all of you devotees, and my obeisances to you all. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Bhagavatam. All glories to Manath Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. See you next week.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Mr. Beck knows a lot about Dad, don't you? He knows what it's like to dig a hole so deep you can never climb out.
Call it what you want. It's gotta be done. Slavery. And we intend to stop it.
Ito inspired. Quem ganharia, Mike Tyson or Muhammad?
Manito wants to know who you think to win a fight between Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali.